The scent of freshly baked bread lingered in the morning air as sunlight poured gently through the half-open windows of Baker's restaurant. It was 6:45 a.m., and the clatter of dishes echoed through the modest yet warm establishment. At the far end of the restaurant, near the kitchen entrance, Laura fastened her apron, her long brown hair neatly tied into a bun. Her eyes, deep and expressive, carried the wariness of someone who had grown up too fast. Laura was 25, slender, striking, and graceful in her movements, yet there was a quiet fire in her that made her different. She didn't laugh as easily as the others, but when she did, it felt like sunlight after a week of rain. Her life had been far from easy. She was the only child of parents who had loved her dearly. Her father had passed away in an accident when she was 16, and from that day, everything changed. Her mother, now bound to a wheelchair due to a degenerative disease, was her world and her greatest responsibility. Baker's restaurant was her lifeline. She had worked there for 3 years now, earning just enough to pay rent, buy medication for her mother, and put food on their table. The manager, Mr. Baker, an aging but kind-hearted man, had always treated her like a daughter. But the customers? That was another story. Some were decent, many weren't. "Hey, Laura, table 5's waiting," Sophia called out from behind the counter, balancing a tray of steaming coffee cups. "I'm on it," Laura replied, grabbing her notepad. Her tone was polite, but firm, the kind of voice that made certain men pause before trying anything inappropriate. She walked to table 5 with her usual grace. 2 men, in their 40s, eyed her as she approached. "Well, good morning, Angel," one said, his breath thick with stale tobacco. "You look like you stepped out of my dreams." Laura ignored the comment. "What would you like to order?" "Depends. You on the menu?" Sophia, from across the room, shot her a look of concern. Laura's expression didn't change. "No," she said sharply, "and if you keep talking like that, it'll get the manager." The men laughed, but there was an edge in Laura's voice that made them rethink pushing further. They ordered their coffee in silence after that. Later in the break room, Sophia shook her head. "I don't know how you do it. I'd have lost my job ages ago slapping customers like that." Laura smiled faintly, wiping sweat from her brow. "I don't have the luxury of losing this job." Sophia and Laura had become fast friends from the moment they met. Sophia was the opposite of Laura, outgoing, flirty, and often humorous in the face of stress. The two balanced each other perfectly. Where Sophia brought laughter, Laura brought calm. "How's your mom?" Sophia asked. "Still the same," Laura said softly. "Her legs are getting weaker. But she smiled yesterday when I brought her the lemon tart, said it tasted like sunshine." "That's so sweet," Sophia sighed. "She's lucky to have you." Laura didn't respond. She didn't feel lucky. She felt tired and trapped in a life that never gave her room to breathe. But she had dreams, quiet ones, of someday owning a small cafe of her own, where her mother could sit by the window and sip tea, and she could work without fear or shame. It was nearing noon when 2 unfamiliar men entered the restaurant. Both dressed in sharp suits, their presence was commanding. The taller one had sharp blue eyes and a confident stride. His friend, slightly shorter but no less attractive, scanned the room as though looking for something, or someone. Laura was at the counter, jotting down an order. When she looked up, her eyes met the taller man's gaze. He didn't smile, but there was an intensity in his stare that unsettled her. She quickly looked away. "Laura, you've got table 7, Sophia whispered. "Those 2 handsome devils just walked in, and I'm telling you, they're loaded. I saw the car they came in. It's a Bentley." "So?" Laura replied, unimpressed. "So," Sophia drawled dramatically. "If that tall one looked at me the way he looked at you, I'd already be planning our honeymoon in the Maldives." Laura chuckled under her breath and walked toward the table. "Welcome to Baker's," she said, pen ready. "What can I get you?" The shorter man, Jude, flashed a charming smile. "Well, start with some coffee, black, and maybe you can help me decide what else I'm in the mood for." His tone was flirtatious. Laura ignored the hint. "Black coffee, 2? The taller one, Matthew, nodded. "Yes, thank you, and maybe a slice of that apple pie in the glass display." "Coming right up," she said, and turned away. Jude leaned closer to Matthew. "She's stunning. Think she's single?" Matthew's eyes didn't leave her. "Probably, but she doesn't look like she plays games." "Yeah," Jude muttered. "Makes it even more interesting." From the kitchen doorway, Sophia peeked out again and caught Matthew still staring at Laura. She grinned to herself. Things were about to get interesting. Matthew Gary wasn't used to waiting, on anyone or anything. At just 32, he had already conquered the tech world, co-founded a billion-dollar logistics firm, and owned properties across the globe. Investors and CEOs hung on his every word. But in this small-town restaurant with faded wallpaper and the scent of butter and cinnamon in the air, he found himself waiting. For her. Laura. She wasn't glamorous in the conventional way. No flashy makeup, no effort to impress. Yet, she carried herself with the kind of grace that couldn't be faked. Matthew had seen thousands of beautiful women, but none had ever made his pulse skip the way this waitress did. "You're doing that thing again," Jude muttered from across the table. "What thing?" Matthew asked, sipping his coffee. "The staring thing. It's like you're trying to read her mind from across the room." Matthew didn't answer. Instead, he watched Laura refill a customer's glass, her fingers deft and steady, her posture straight. She smiled politely, but it didn't reach her eyes. She seemed tired and strong. "She's different," Matthew finally said. Jude grinned. "So go talk to her." "She doesn't strike me as someone who's impressed by money." "Well," Jude chuckled, "good thing you're not just money. You're also absurdly good-looking." Matthew smirked and set down his cup. Laura approached the table shortly after with her usual calm professionalism. "Coffee refill?" "Please," Matthew said. She filled their cups with practiced ease. Jude leaned forward. "So, Laura, right?" She gave a small nod. "I'm Jude. This is Matthew." "I remember," she replied, jotting on her notepad. "Anything else?" Matthew looked up, meeting her gaze directly. "Just this. Your pie is excellent." "Thank you," she said. No smile, just a flicker of acknowledgement before she turned away. "She's not biting," Jude murmured. "She will," Matthew said calmly. "Eventually. They came in 3 more times that week, always around lunch, always the same order, always the same table, table 7. It was Sophia who first commented. "They're coming just to see you." Laura, restocking sugar packets, didn't look up. "They're customers." "No, Laura, Jude's into you and trying too hard, but it's Mr. Silent Gaze that's got it bad. You're the only reason they're here." Laura finally sighed. "You want him, Sophia? Take him." Sophia blinked. "You serious?" "Completely. I'm not interested." Sophia tilted her head, studying her. "You know, you can be tough and still let someone in. Not every man is out to break you." Laura paused, then resumed her work. "I know, but she wasn't convinced." 2 days later, a quiet tension gripped the afternoon rush. Laura was clearing plates from table 4 when a man seated at table 2, mid-30s, well-dressed, a regular customer with a smug confidence, waved her over. He had already eaten, but the way his eyes lingered on her made her stomach twist. As she approached, he leaned back, legs crossed like he owned the room. "You've got a beautiful smile," he said casually, placing a folded bill on the edge of the table. "Thank you," Laura replied coolly. "Can I get you anything else?" He smirked. "Yeah, how about you sit with me for a minute? It'll make it worth your while." Laura's jaw tightened. "I'm here to serve food, not company." Without a word, he reached out, slipped the bill down the collar of her shirt, and then, with a disgusting familiarity, gave her backside a hard slap. The sound echoed louder than her reaction. Laura turned on instinct. Her open palm struck his cheek so sharply the entire room fell silent. Silverware clinked, someone gasped, a child dropped a spoon. "You touch me again," she said through clenched teeth, "and it'll break your hand." The man's eyes blazed with humiliation and anger. "You little—" But he didn't get another word out before a figure moved from across the restaurant with quiet fury. Matthew Gary. He arrived without theatrics, his presence like a shadow descending. In one swift motion, he grabbed the man by the collar and yanked him up from the booth. "You think that's how you treat women?" Matthew hissed, his voice low and deadly. "Apologize." The man glanced around, realizing all eyes were on him, some shocked, others waiting to see what Matthew would do next. Matthew didn't wait. He shoved the man backwards so hard he slammed against the edge of the table. The man cursed and staggered, but said nothing more as he hurried out of the restaurant. Red-faced and humiliated, Laura stood frozen, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She wasn't afraid, just overwhelmed. She had fought off men before, but this was the first time someone had fought for her. "You okay?" Matthew asked gently. "Yes," she breathed. "Thank you." He gave a small nod. "I couldn't just sit and watch that." Laura hesitated. She had never considered giving her number to a customer before. But this man, there was something steady about him, grounded. "I don't usually do this," she said, her voice quiet. "But if you still want my number, I do." She tore a scrap from her order pad, scribbled her number, and handed it to him. "No promises. No expectations," Matthew replied, tucking the number into his jacket. "Just honesty." As he turned to leave with Jude, Sophia practically sprinted from behind the counter. Girl, what just happened?" Laura just stared at the door, heart pounding. "I think something's about to change." The message came that same evening. Laura had just helped her mother into bed, placed a warm cloth on her knees, and set the old TV to a soft nature documentary, her mother's favorite. The night outside their apartment was quiet. No sirens, no traffic, just the ticking of the kitchen clock and the sound of rain brushing gently against the window pane. Laura sat on the edge of the sofa, feet bare, flipping through her phone. When the screen lit up with an unknown number, her heart skipped. "Hi, it's Matthew. I hope you're safe. Just checking in." Simple. No pressure, no flirtation. She stared at the message for a moment, unsure what to feel, then typed back slowly, "I'm safe. Thank you for earlier today. I really appreciate it." He responded almost instantly. "You shouldn't have to thank someone for doing what's right." Laura's fingers hovered above the screen. She smiled, faintly. That was the beginning. In the days that followed, Matthew didn't bombard her with texts. He didn't flood her phone with emojis or ask for pictures. He simply sent thoughtful, respectful messages. "Good morning, I hope your day's smooth." Or, "Did your mom enjoy the lemon tart?" Things that showed he had been paying attention, not just to her, but to her life. For the first time in a long while, Laura felt seen. After a week, he asked her out, not aggressively, not presumptuously. "No pressure at all, but if you ever have time, I'd love to take you to dinner, just to talk." She stared at that message for a long time. Sophia had already teased her into exhaustion. "Girl, you should have said yes 3 texts ago." But Laura wasn't like Sophia. She didn't fall easily. She guarded her heart like a fortress. Still, there was something in Matthew's quiet persistence that softened her. "Okay," she finally replied. "One dinner." The restaurant he chose wasn't flashy, though he could have easily reserved the entire rooftop of a 5-star hotel. Instead, it was a quiet, candlelit Mediterranean place tucked into the quieter end of the city. He was already there when she arrived, standing as she walked in. He wore a dark grey suit with the collar of his shirt slightly open, and when he saw her, something lit in his eyes. "You look beautiful," he said gently. Laura had kept it simple, a navy dress, her hair in soft curls, barely any makeup, but the way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the room, made her chest tighten. "Thank you," she murmured, taking her seat. Dinner was easy. No awkward silences, no ego. He asked about her job, about her dreams. When she spoke about her mother, he didn't just nod, he listened. "She loves chamomile tea," Laura said. "Says it reminds her of my dad. You were close with him?" "I was," she said. "He died when I was 16. "I'm sorry," Matthew said, his voice quiet. "That must have been hard." "It still is," she admitted. "But my mom, she's strong, and I try to be too." He didn't say, "I can take care of you," or sex. "You don't have to be strong with me." He simply reached across the table and touched her hand. "I admire that," he said. "Your strength." For a second, Laura felt the world pause. That dinner led to another, then another. In the following weeks, Matthew showed her a world she hadn't known. He took her to art galleries, jazz lounges, and little bakeries tucked away in corners of the city. But it wasn't about money. He never flaunted it. In fact, he was humble to a fault. He bought her a warm coat when she mentioned hers had a broken zipper. He surprised her mother with an electric foot warmer and gourmet tea blends. He didn't try to impress. He simply gave. One weekend, he invited her to a lakeside cottage, just for a quiet walk and picnic. Laura, hesitant, almost said no. But when he promised he'd bring her back before sundown, and even offered to pick her mother's favorite flowers on the way, she gave in. They spent the day laughing, sharing stories, watching ducks skim across the water. As the sun set, Laura stood near the edge of the lake, her shoes off, her toes in the grass. "I haven't felt this free in years," she whispered. Matthew stepped beside her. "Then I want to give you that. Every day." She turned to look at him. He didn't kiss her. He just took her hand and held it. And in that quiet moment, Laura felt something shift inside her. A door opening, a lock turning. Maybe, just maybe, she thought, she could love again. The first time Matthew brought Laura to his penthouse, she felt like she'd walked into a movie. The elevator opened directly into the apartment, a sleek, elegant space with tall glass windows overlooking the skyline, imported Italian furniture, and minimalist decor that whispered wealth without ever needing to shout. Every detail was intentional, curated, and immaculately designed. "You live here?" Laura said, eyes wide. Matthew gave her a small smile. "It's simple, but it does the job." "Simple," she breathed. "This place looks like it belongs in a magazine." "I wanted something peaceful," he said, pouring her a glass of aged wine. "And now that you're here, it finally feels complete." For a few months, Laura lived in a haze of romance she'd never imagined possible. The quiet, Matthew Gary, who'd once stared at her from across the restaurant, transformed into a man of grand gestures. He bought her a Cartier bracelet 2 weeks after their first official date. "It reminded me of you," he said casually as he clasped it on her wrist. Strong, elegant, timeless. He filled her tiny apartment with designer clothes she hadn't dared even try on in stores before. Silk gowns, heels she couldn't pronounce, and purses that came with authentication cards. Laura was overwhelmed at first, insisting he didn't have to do all this. "I want to," he told her firmly. "You deserve nice things. You've had to do everything on your own for too long. Let me change that." And he did. He replaced her second-hand phone with the latest model. Paid off her overdue rent without even telling her. She only found out when her landlord came to her in disbelief. He sent flower arrangements to her mother's care home weekly, and soon arranged for her to be moved to a luxury medical facility where she had round-the-clock care. He didn't just take Laura to dinner, he flew her to Milan for it. One night, after a 5-course meal at a cliffside restaurant in Santorini, he presented her with a delicate diamond necklace. "I saw it and thought, this belongs on you," he said, placing it gently around her neck. "Now you sparkle like I see you." Laura was stunned. "Matthew, this is too much." "No," he whispered. "This is just the beginning." Sophia was in complete disbelief. "You're telling me he took you shopping on Rodeo Drive?" Laura laughed, showing off a silk scarf. "I didn't even ask for anything. He just wants to do it." "Laura, this isn't dating. This is a billionaire fairy tale. Is he real?" "I don't know," Laura admitted, "but he's kind, generous, and he listens." Sophia leaned closer. "You love him?" "I think. Yes, I do." And she did. But even in all the dazzle and luxury, something unsettled her at times. The day she tried to return a designer bag saying it was too expensive, Matthew's demeanor shifted. Not in a cruel way, but in something colder, harder. "I bought it for you," he said, his voice calm but tight. "Is it so hard to accept kindness?" "No, I'm sorry," she said quickly. I want to give you the world, Laura. Let me." She nodded, and the coldness faded as quickly as it came. When he proposed, it wasn't on a whim. It was orchestrated like a dream. They were vacationing in Lake Como, Italy. He took her out on a private yacht as the sun dipped low behind the hills, casting gold across the water. A string quartet played softly, and the lake breeze kissed her skin. And then he knelt. "Laura, from the moment I saw you, I've wanted to protect you, adore you, keep you safe. Will you marry me?" Her heart thundered. In that perfect moment, surrounded by splendor, it felt like saying no would be madness. "Yes," she whispered. He slid a flawless diamond ring onto her finger. It sparkled like it belonged in a royal museum. That night, he held her tightly in the glow of luxury sheets, his breath warm against her ear. "You're mine now," he murmured. It sounded romantic at the time. The mansion sat nestled in the hills of a quiet city, far from the chaos and warmth of the world Laura had known. It was twice the size of Matthew's penthouse, with polished marble floors, tall white columns, and a sprawling garden that seemed to stretch endlessly behind the house. It looked like something from a fairy tale. But the moment Laura stepped inside, the silence struck her like a warning. No neighbors, no chatter, just the quiet hum of money and walls too high to hear through. "It's ours," Matthew said, standing beside her in the grand foyer, his arm around her waist. "No distractions, no interruptions, just you and me." Laura looked around. The house was stunning, luxurious, tasteful, cold. "It's beautiful," she said softly, but it didn't feel like home. The first few days were uneventful. Matthew had cleared his schedule to settle them in. He oversaw the staff, checked the security systems, adjusted the layout of the furniture, always in control, always exact. He wanted Laura to rest, to enjoy the new chapter of their life. At first, she tried. She took walks through the gardens, arranged flowers in the sunroom, even started painting again. But she noticed quickly that Matthew watched everything. Every step, every breath, every glance at her phone. When she mentioned going to town to pick up some things, he frowned. "I'll have it delivered. I wanted to get some air." "There is air here. You're safe here." She laughed lightly, but he didn't smile. Later that evening, he took her phone and handed her a new one. "This is better security. I've installed protection so no one can hack you or track you. But all my old contacts are gone. They weren't important. You have me now." The words slid over her skin like oil. She tried to call Sophia the next day. The call wouldn't go through. When she asked Matthew about it, he shrugged. "I blocked her number. She's not good for you. I've seen the way she talks." "You what?" "She's not respectful. I don't want her planting ideas in your head." "She's my best friend." "I'm your husband," he said, voice cold and firm. "You need to learn to trust that I know what's best for you." It was the first time he raised his voice. It wouldn't be the last. Weeks passed. Laura felt the walls closing in. Matthew became increasingly possessive. He didn't want her going out alone, and when she insisted, he assigned a driver who reported everything back to him. The staff never looked her in the eye. The house, though beautiful, echoed like a prison. When she expressed a desire to return to work, part-time even at Baker's, he laughed. "My wife? Waiting tables. Are you out of your mind? It's not about money. It's about image. About us. You belong here. With me." She didn't argue further. What would be the point? Then came the first slap. It wasn't during a fight. It wasn't a moment of screaming or rage. It was quiet, cruel, controlled. She had mentioned carefully that she missed her mother, that she wanted to spend a few nights with her in the care home, that maybe, just maybe, she could stay with her for a while. Matthew didn't say a word. He simply stared at her, then walked toward her, and slapped her. Hard. Her ears rang from the impact. "If you ever say something like that again," he whispered, "I'll make sure you don't leave this house. Ever." Laura staggered backward, holding her cheek, her heart pounding. "Matthew, I give you everything," he said, eyes sharp. "And this is how you repay me? By trying to run away?" "I'm not running. You're mine," he snarled. "Everything I do is for you." She didn't reply. She turned and walked away slowly, her body trembling. She locked herself in the bathroom and cried silently, biting into a towel to muffle the sound. The next day, he brought her a diamond necklace, kissed her bruised cheek, said he was sorry. "You just make me crazy," he murmured. "I love you too much." She wore the necklace, but something inside her cracked. Then came the miscarriages, 3 of them. Each time it followed one of his episodes. He would strike her, shove her, scream at her, then weep, then beg, then lavish her with gifts. The cycle became a cruel ritual. Roses followed bruises, luxury covered scars. By the 3rd loss, Laura was a shell. Her eyes were no longer bright, her laughter rare, her voice hollow. She had everything and nothing. She looked out the window one day, watched a delivery van pull up, and saw a new face. John. And everything began to change. The first time Laura saw John, he was standing at the mansion gate with a clipboard and a quiet patience most delivery men didn't bother with. He wore a plain blue polo, his hair slightly tousled by the wind, and his face, though unremarkable at first glance, held something gentle in the eyes. She wouldn't have noticed him at all, really, had it not been for the way he looked at her. Not with hunger, not with admiration, just concern. She had stepped onto the front porch that morning to get fresh air under the careful watch of 2 silent security guards. Her arms were folded over the bruises on her forearm, leftovers from a push the night before. Matthew had apologized, of course. He always did. The roses on the table were already wilting. John caught her eye, hesitated, then looked away quickly. She returned the gaze without speaking. He left soon after, a small nod and polite goodbye. It became routine. John arrived every Tuesday and Friday. Fresh groceries, parcels, imported wine. Matthew never even drank. Laura saw him from the window, or sometimes when she ventured near the door. He never asked questions, never lingered. But he noticed. He noticed when she started walking slower, when the bruises on her wrist weren't hidden so well, when the light in her eyes dimmed more and more. And one morning, he broke the silence. I brought some extra tea," he said, handing over the brown paper bag. "Chamomile. On the house." Laura blinked, startled. "You remembered I liked chamomile?" He nodded, awkward. You mentioned it once. She took the bag, fingertips brushing his. Thank you. It was the first kind thing anyone had done for her in weeks. Their interactions stayed simple. Quick hellos, safe questions. But the small moments grew heavier with meaning. John never asked about the bruises, but his eyes would flicker, then fall. She once caught him clenching his fists when he saw a fresh cut on her lip. "I'm okay," she whispered one day. "You shouldn't have to say that," he replied. It was that sentence, so soft, so real, that broke her. She stepped closer, voice trembling. "Can I trust you?" John's eyes met hers. Yes. When Matthew left for work the next day, Laura lingered near the kitchen door after John made his usual delivery. She didn't know what possessed her, only that her heart had been building a quiet scream for months. "John," she called softly. He turned. "Come back in a few hours. Say you forgot something. Please." He stared at her, confused but nodding. Okay. That night, he came back. He told the guards he had forgotten an item on the order. They didn't question him. Matthew's name ensured silence. Laura was waiting by the back door. Inside the kitchen, under the dim glow of the chandelier, she made them tea. She wore a simple nightgown, hair down, eyes tired. John didn't sit. He stood across the counter, uncertain, respectful, and yet burning with unspoken emotion. "You shouldn't be here," she said, handing him the cup. "I know, but I didn't want to be alone tonight." She sat on the edge of the counter, sipping slowly. Her body ached in places he couldn't see, but her soul, God, her soul was screaming for someone to hold it together. "I think about you," she said suddenly. "Too much." John's breath caught. "Laura, I know it's wrong, but I don't care." She looked at him then, really looked at him. This wasn't a rich man's calculated smile. This was kindness. This was longing. This was a man who had seen her pain and didn't turn away. He crossed the space slowly, cautiously, stopping just inches away. "Are you sure?" he asked. She nodded, voice breaking. "Please." His kiss was soft, hesitant at first, like touching glass that could shatter. But then it deepened, raw and desperate. Her hands tangled in his shirt, his arms wrapped around her like he was afraid she might vanish. They didn't go upstairs. They stayed in the warmth of the kitchen, behind locked doors and shadows. It wasn't about lust. It was about escape, about reclaiming something that had been stolen from her. That night, she didn't dream of running. She dreamed of staying. They met like that often after, when the house was quiet, when the guards were asleep, when Matthew was far enough away for her to breathe. They didn't speak of the future, not yet. They spoke of moments. John would come with more than deliveries, small music boxes, a sketch pad, a hidden bottle of perfume. He brought pieces of the outside world to remind her it still existed. In turn, Laura gave him pieces of herself shed kept locked away. Her laughter, her stories, her body, her trust. One evening, as she lay on his chest in the pantry, listening to the tick of the old grandfather clock, she whispered, "I love you." John's hand slid gently over her back. "I've loved you since the first time you looked like you wanted to disappear." She closed her eyes. "Then don't let me." "I won't." And he didn't. From that moment, everything changed. Their love had taken root, even in this poisoned garden. But Laura knew it couldn't last. Matthew was beginning to grow suspicious. He asked more questions. His absences grew shorter. The guards seemed sharper. So one morning, as John prepared to leave after their secret meeting, she grabbed his arm. "Help me leave," she whispered. "For real this time." John stared at her, torn. "Laura, this is too dangerous. I know who he is, but I also know what hell do if I stay." She pulled up the sleeve of her robe, revealing a bruise so dark it looked like ink. John swallowed. "I can't watch you die. Then help me live." His jaw clenched. He nodded. They had made love in a prison, but now they would plan their escape. Together. The morning after Laura asked John to help her escape, the mansion seemed colder. She couldn't explain it. Something in the air had shifted. The guards were more alert. Matthew's tone more clipped. He watched her longer, held her tighter, and began locking his office when he left the house. Laura knew then. He was starting to suspect something. She stood by the window with her tea, trying to keep her hands from shaking. From across the lawn, the delivery van rolled into view right on time. Her heart lifted slightly. It was John, her anchor. This time, he didn't even glance her way. He was being careful. That night, he returned after dark. The excuse? A signature was missing from the last delivery. She let him in through the back pantry door, locking it quickly behind him. His face was drawn, jaw clenched. "Matthew's men followed me part of the way today," he said under his breath. "Not obvious, but I felt them." Laura's heart pounded. "He's getting suspicious. I know, we need to move faster." They sat in the laundry room, lights off, hunched beside the humming dryer, the only place with no security cameras. "I rented the apartment," John whispered. "Quiet seaside town. No surveillance. 1 bedroom, close to a small hospital. The landlord thinks I'm a traveling field tech. I told him you were my wife." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "That doesn't sound so bad." He didn't smile. "We have 1 shot," Laura nodded. "I'm ready." John gave her a small bottle of fine powder sealed in a zip pouch. "Sleeping compound, tasteless. Crush it and mix it into the guards' coffee or food. They'll be out for 4 to 5 hours, long enough to get away." Laura took it carefully, slipping it into the hollow space of a fake lipstick tube. "And what about Matthew? He leaves for a business meeting in 2 days. It's in the city. He'll be gone overnight if the meeting doesn't change. You'll call me as soon as he leaves. It'll be 10 minutes away." She exhaled slowly. "Do you think we'll make it?" John turned her to face him. "I've never wanted anything more than to get you out of here." He kissed her, slow and deep, and the weight of fear lifted for a moment. The next day, Matthew was unusually affectionate. He brought her a new silk robe. He called her my angel more times than she could count. But Laura saw through it now. His sweetness was just another mask, and he was wearing it too tightly. That evening, he told her about his trip. "Meeting with investors. He'll be in the city for the night." "You'll be fine, yes?" he asked, stroking her hair. Laura smiled weakly. "Of course." She held her breath until his car vanished down the road. Then she moved. She waited until nightfall. The guards sat in the lounge, eating the pasta dish shed carefully laced earlier in the day. She watched from the hallway as they slowly nodded off, one by one, heavy-lidded and slurring. She ran. Out the back door, across the gravel, through the gate. John was waiting, headlights off, engine running. She threw herself into the passenger seat, heart thudding. "Go!" They didn't speak for the first 10 minutes. She kept glancing in the mirror, half expecting a black SUV to appear behind them. When they were well out of the estate zone, John reached over and took her hand. "You did it. We did it," she whispered, voice breaking. Thanks for watching, and please, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and stay tuned for the next part.